Hello and welcome to another episode of Marketed Not Live, the podcast for attendees and wannabe attendees of Marketed Live, which of course takes place on Tuesday the 25th of September 2018 at Nottingham Contemporary. It's getting close now and we're really looking forward to seeing everybody there. So for those of you that have watched this for quite a while over the last few weeks, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and do all of those things that you need to do, including leaving reviews and all the things that people ask you to do when they're doing this kind of podcast thing. This podcast is actually supported by and sponsored by Podcast Websites, the UK's leading platform for creating podcasts. And they've been magnificent at helping us really get this going. So thank you to them. If you're interested in running a podcast for yourself, and why wouldn't you be? Because audio marketing is one of the best channels that you can use right now in terms of people actually taking action. Then go to podcastwebsites.com and sign up. Ticket holders of Marketed Live and anyone listening to this podcast really who gets the ability to access our website can get 25% off membership for life. So why not go and do that? Now, today in the show, we are privileged to welcome one of our key speakers for 2018. It's Chris Marr.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. It's good to be here. I'm getting quite excited about the gig, man. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody there. Yeah, it's good. I'm excited.
It's really not that far away, but we're so pleased to have you on board. You know, I've listened to your content, I read your content, and obviously we've met in person a number of times. And one of the reasons that we wanted to have you at the event itself was because, you know, you have quite a lot to say about content marketing, actually. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, there's always something to talk about with content, isn't there? It's a big field. So my name's Chris Marr. I'm 36 and a half years old. I live in Scotland. I'm based on the east coast of Scotland. I grew up here, went to university here, the whole lot, you know, and I built my business here as well. So born and bred in Scotland, which is pretty awesome. Scotland's an amazing place. We love it here. And I think the sort of short version of this is that the day I graduated university, I went to university about 10 years later than everybody else. So everyone in my class was like in their early 20s. I was in my early 30s when I graduated. And I never thought I'd go to university. I did my business degree. And the day I graduated, it was the day that I started my own business. My degree is still in the bag that it came in. I've never really used it for anything. And that was nearly 6 years ago. And ever since then, I've just been on this journey of kind of trying to figure out what my business should be, and content marketing has just been like a huge part of that whole development. Not only is the company called Content Marketing Academy, we have the name in the actual name of the business, but everything from blogging and videos and podcasting and all the teaching and advice and consulting that we do is all about content marketing. So I've kind of lived and breathed it as part of my business for 5-6 years, but this goes back to 2008, 2009, when, you know, Facebook and Twitter and things like that were really starting to come into their own. So yeah, for the last 10 years or something like that, I've been kind of getting involved in this sort of new way of communicating online, social media, content marketing.
Did you actually start the business deliberately with that in mind, or did you just come to do that after having another idea?
That's a really good question. No, that's a funny thing, actually. In hindsight, it doesn't make any sense that I did this. So I started my business. My business was originally called Learning Every Day. And it wasn't until we started the live event stuff that the Content Marketing Academy became like, that was what everybody loved about what we did. So then we eventually changed the name to the Content Marketing Academy as well. So it was kind of like a whole organic process, basically, of just trying to figure all of that out. But when I started the business, I started as a kind of general marketing consultant. So I found myself doing daft things, like crazy things, like designing business cards for people and websites. And you know, and as soon as you get into websites, you're into web hosting and email hosting and all of that kind of stuff. And over the years, I really just started to figure out, I think as most people do, figure out what they are actually good at. And what I'm really good at is teaching content marketing. So that became my business. That became everything that I do. So it involves the speaking, the podcasting, the blogs, and also our membership as well. So it just took me a couple of years to really find my feet, to figure out what it was that I should be doing. So in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done any of that stuff in the first couple of years, just sort of general consulting, but really focused on content marketing. So yeah, we've done everything, I think, over the years. And I think even as each year goes on, we keep refining what it is that we do. And that's just a part of the process, I think.
What do you define as content then? So, I mean, is it just anything that goes out? And by the way, I'm sure that's a question that you asked all the time. But what do you mean by content?
Yeah, so I do get asked it all the time, but I really don't mind answering it, because I think it's important, because a lot of people ask this question like with intention, as in really, we need to figure it out. I feel like even in the UK, even across the world, into Europe and into the States as well, we're still trying to understand what it means for businesses. So I like to talk about content from the perspective of a business owner, because even if you're doing any type of marketing, even if it's a marketing department, or if you are the marketer as the business owner, like a company of one, for example, or a marketing freelancer, the number one thing we really need to figure out is this activity and is this effort that we're putting into this thing actually growing our business? Is there a return on our investment? So I think it's really important to see content as a strategic and commercial activity in any business. So to me, content marketing isn't just content. I think it's important to split the two words up. We've got content and you've got marketing. What is content marketing? So content is just content, right? There's loads of that. There's loads of people saying lots of things about lots of different things in the world. You've got blogs and podcasts and infographics and just tons of what people would maybe call content marketing, but I would probably just see it as just content. And content marketing is really when you put the strategic part to that, and you start to think about, well, how does this piece of content equal business growth? How does this piece of content get us new customers, or get the customers that we've got to spend more money with us or stay with us for longer? So I feel like content marketing, from my perspective and what we teach, is very much about seeing content marketing as a commercial and strategic part of the business. So it's really important to get that distinction, because I think there's a lot of definitions of what content marketing is, but really at the heart of it, for everyone that's putting time and effort and even money into content marketing, it has to come back to, is this worth our time? Is this an effective use of our resources? That's the most important question we need to answer. So that's where we firmly place ourselves with content marketing. We're not really that interested in any other types of content. So every time I see a blog, a podcast, a video, whatever it is we're looking at, I'm thinking, well, where does this fit in strategically? How is this helping your customers to make an educated buying decision? How is this helping you to grow your business?
Okay, so if we were to take this podcast that we're on, which is content, and we were to look at what is the purpose of this podcast, I'm quite happy to say that the purpose of this podcast is to ultimately generate more ticket sales to MarketEd Live 2018. Is that a fair but simple objective? Do I need to, for example, do we need to go back and say, well, if it needs to generate ticket sales, how is it going to do that? Is it going to do that by the selection of the right guests or having the right conversations? Do we, is there, for example, there will be some guests on the podcast talking about topics that are not in the event this year. Is that a bad idea? Is that not focused enough? What do you think? And I'm happy for you to, feedback.
What do you think? Do you think why would you do it otherwise?
Why would I do what? Choose the speakers?
The speakers, yeah.
Well, that is the purpose, as far as I'm concerned. It is to generate interest in the event, to show people that we understand the types of topics that people want to talk about, to ask the right questions, and to show people that this is actually something that they can learn more about at the event itself in September.
Yeah, there's probably like 2 or 3 main factors. First of all, you've got like the immediate goal or the immediate objective of this is to create awareness of MarketEd Live, right? to grow your audience so that people are more aware of the brand, more aware of what you do, and therefore you're on their radar, right? And they know that you're in the world and that there's an event that you run. And as long as you tell them these things on your podcast, then that's a good sort of like immediate goal to have. The longer term perspective, and this is, I think, the bit that people kind of really forget about when it comes to content marketing, is that especially for a live event, but also for any type of business that has a longer sales cycle, is that it's for next year and the year after and the year after that. The content that you create should be an asset for your business, something that you can use today and tomorrow and next week and next month and next year to generate interest, to help people to figure out if they want to do business with you, to build trust, to build a relationship. And I think content marketing has all of that element to it as well. The great thing about doing something like this, Paul, is that you're got on video as well. So what hopefully happens is that they build a personal connection with you, an emotional connection with you, so that if they do buy a ticket for your event, they have seen your face, they know where you live, and if there's any problems, they know that you're a real person, right? You're not hiding behind a brand. It's very open, it's very transparent. So I think there's a lot of other softer things that need to be appreciated with content marketing as well. So I don't want to come across as like this guy that's like, content marketing is all about sales. There's a massive part of that is about sales. For most business people, they want to make sure and feel like, this is the thing about marketing. A lot of business owners want certainty, right? They want to be certain that the thing that they're going to invest their time in is going to have results. But unfortunately, in a lot of things that we do in our life, everything, there is an element of uncertainty. So we have to take a little bit of a gamble and a little bit of a risk, but we need enough certainty to say, you know what, I believe in this thing. I believe that if we do this and we do it consistently over a long period of time, that it will build our business in many ways. Yes, it'll get us more customers, but more importantly, it'll show that we're committed. It'll show people that we're not going anywhere. It'll show people that we want to build a relationship, that we can be trusted. You know, there's loads of reasons that content marketing works at many, many different levels.
So consistency is a big theme from what you were just saying there. And I suppose when you've got a podcast or any other kind of series or a blog, for example, then that's what we're talking about there. We're talking about regularly having content that people can maybe dip in and out of, but know that it's there to continue build that relationship that you were talking about.
Yeah. I think consistency is about expectations though. So I think when I say consistency, a lot of people might interpret that as like, if you turning up every single week, like we talked about before we just jumped on, right? To make sure that you're going to have enough content for a weekly podcast to turn up every single week. But if you told everybody that you were going to do a season and then you're going to have a break and then you're going to do another season, as long as you do what you said you were going to do, then I think that's okay. It's kind of like a TV show or a TV season, right? If you say we're going to do 12 weeks of 13 episodes and you do 13 episodes, then you've done what you said you were going to do. So it's consistency in delivering on expectations. But for a lot of business people, it comes down to making sure that you're serving your audience in the right way. You're doing not only what you said you were going to do, but almost like, I feel like a lot of people's audience, customers, prospects need to see that you have the capability to commit to something. I think that shows you don't even have to tell people that you've committed to something for a long period of time, but if you show them that you're capable of it, I think that in itself builds a lot of trust.
Because it translates.
You're not going, you're showing that you are able to turn up and deliver something consistently over a long period of time. And a lot of people can't brush their teeth every day, get out of bed at the same time every day, never mind do something every single week for a long period of time. So I think that does show a lot of determination. It shows that you believe in what you do. It shows that you're motivated by what you do, that you just love your business. And I think that speaks in volumes to your audience and to your potential customers.
There's lots of different types of content. And if people are thinking about, well, what is the best type for me in able to demonstrate their values to their audience, as you've just said, how does somebody go about choosing what type of format they should perhaps create this stuff in?
Yeah, I think this is like a really tough sort of challenge. I think that most people have, like, what where, what, how, what should we be doing? And it depends a lot on resource, what kind of resource you have. But to kind of answer the question sort of directly, I would say the first thing that you should do is think about what your strengths are personally, especially if you're going to be the one creating the content. There's no point in putting barriers in front of you and your audience deliberately to start with. So there's a lot of other barriers to entry as well. There's a lot of fear and confidence issues. There's no point in dialing them up just because everyone else is doing video that you should do video. So the first thing I would say is, like, where are your strengths? Where do you feel comfortable? Where do you feel confident? And then focus in that area. I would also say that, based on my experience, my personal experience with content and watching other people, is that whatever platform you decide to choose, is just be like world class at that one thing first before you decide to do videos, podcasts, blogs, infographics, whatever, and start to do all the things at once, because you start to spread yourself thin, and not everybody is great at all of those things. So what do you think you could be world class at? What do you think you could not only be world class at, but also make a big difference with as well? So I think there's a time and a place to look at the marketplace. What are your competitors doing? What is seemingly underserved? And then how do you serve in that gap and that opportunity? So you could, first of all, look at your strengths, then look at where the gaps are, try and find a match somewhere in the middle there. And then I think the third thing is to make sure that you create the best possible version of that content that exists online today. I think that's where you should start.
One of the things that always strikes me about you, having met you, like I say, a number of times and got to know you, is that, and this is just my view of you, so it kind of doesn't matter whether you agree. But what, when you talk, and when you stand on stage and you teach, or you talk to people about content marketing, or even some of the more leadership elements of what it is that you're about, it does feel to me as though you can't. I'm not sure whether understated is the right word or not, but there are plenty of marketers out there that are very sort of brash and like, get in people's faces and do things differently and stand out and all this kind of stuff. You're not like that. Is that deliberate? Or is that just who you are? And I don't know.
Yeah, it's who I am, and it's deliberate. So it's both. So the word you're looking for is hype, probably, right? There's not really much hype about me and or what I do. So it's either it doesn't matter if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It is just the way it is. But that is who I am. That's like my personality as well. So I'd much prefer to say less and have more impact. I'd rather be quiet and say and only say what needs to be said. I'd rather listen. I'd rather ask a question than tell you what to do. There's loads of things that I do that are almost the exact opposite of what most other people would do. And it's not, I think I've dialed it up. I've dialed my own personality up a little bit, I think, because it is different than what other people do. So it's not a performance or anything like that. It is truly who I am, but I have deliberately pushed myself to be more of that person, be better at being like that, because it is typically it's typically not how people behave.
I think that's a good way of putting it, actually, that you're almost becoming self-aware of who you are and maybe what works, and then you're fine-tuning that to be the best version that you can be. So, like, we're talking about trust here, aren't we? And building trust with an audience. We can't all be Gary Vaynerchuk, right? We can't all be like hustle,
yeah.
and I would never want to be personally, but
yeah.
But having the best version of yourself allows people to understand who they're going to be working with, right?
I think a lot of it comes down to confidence. So I would say that if you were to wind the clock back, say 5-6 years when I started in business, it was clean shaven, slick back hair, suit, business cards in the pocket. That sort of stuff is who I was then. I was performing exactly how I thought you had to perform as a business person. And then as I've got more confident with what I know and getting results from the things that we do, all of a sudden you don't have to pretend to be anybody apart from yourself. And so like, you know, I used to be a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk and all of those people. Again, you get more confident in where you, well, I guess some of us won't, but hopefully what will happen is you do become more confident and you start to believe actually more in yourself than which replaces the need for other inputs from other people. So over the past, I would say 18 months, 2 years, I've started to almost ignore everybody else in my space, apart from a select few, which has allowed me to just have, and this is something that's really important as a content marketing lesson as well, is like, what do I think about this thing? How do I feel about my industry? How does this piece of content make me feel? How do I want to turn up? You know, that stuff is way more important than what anybody else has got to say about your industry. Like if you want to be original and you want to have some, like I've noticed the more original thought that I have, the more impact it makes. I might do it less often, but it has more impact. And that's you taking a step back and thinking to yourself, well, you know, internalizing a lot of the things. And I guess it comes down to self-awareness as well. But I think that's been a massive lesson for me over the last couple of years, especially, probably even more so in the last 6 months, is just being able to say, being able to sort of write down and be confident writing my own opinion about a thing, and also cutting out a lot of the external noise that goes on out there. And you don't need it. Honestly, a lot of people are using like the Gary Vaynerchuks and all these influencers as a way to seek permission, but you don't need it. You really don't. You just need to believe in yourself and think, well, how do I feel about it? Feelings are good. Like, how does it make me feel? And then talk about that.
When we think about the future then of content, and Marketed Live's theme this year is the future of marketing, it seems to me as though there is some kind of societal change where we are less interested in the noise and we are more attuned to how somebody feels. So where do you see the future of that? Is it going that way in general? Are we really going to have to make a one-to-one connection with the author?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really tough question, that one. I think the future, I think in order to really channel how you think about the future, or how to not even predict the future, how to sort of almost set yourself up to be future proof is probably the best way to say it, is to really channel in the right types of values. So for example, if you've got the type of values where you're thinking, well, what do you want your content to do? I want my content to build trust with an audience. I want to build a relationship with that audience. Not only do I want them to buy from me, but I want them to stay with me for a long time. And I want them to see me as someone that they could trust, right? That's what we're looking for. So if you take those like a values-based approach to this, and you think, well, every time you create a piece of content, does it fit in with your values? Okay, so it's hard for me to say, how is that not future-proof? Like, regardless of the tactics, do we use AI? Do we use chatbots? Do we use whatever's new? I think it always comes back to the values that you've got. So this is like the principles or the philosophy of your company. So if you understand this, you cannot get the other stuff wrong, I don't think. And regardless of what happens in the future, I think if you behave in the right way and you're doing the right thing as part of your philosophy, then you're going to protect yourself for the future, I think. Now, does that answer your question? I don't think it does.
No,
so,
I don't think it does.
Yeah. It's hard. I think when it comes to talking about the future in marketing, you could wax lyrical about all the different sort of technology and tactics and all of that stuff. But I honestly don't believe that any of that's going to help you if you don't believe what your company is actually trying to achieve.
Right.
You know, what your values are, what your purpose is, how do you do what you do, why do you do what you do, the whole Simon Sinek thing as well. But having a value-based approach to it is you could just be constantly on tactics, just like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to try VR, without understanding at a higher level, or a deeper level, sorry, what it is that we are here to do and why we exist.
Well, a good example of what you're saying there in terms of, values over technology potentially is that if you look at something like VR, we can all be astounded at, oh, I'm in this new environment. But if you were selling a home, you've got to put that person in that home and make them feel like it's their home. Because if you want them to buy that house, you've got to make them feel something. And that's,
exactly.
That is exactly the same thing.
Exactly. So if that was part of your value system and the part of how you want your customer to feel, then VR would fit directly in with that. So well, how do we use VR to deliver the same values and the same feelings to our audience? But for most business people, VR is completely irrelevant and a distraction probably for most of us, right? So I think you need to really evaluate the marketplace. You've got to find a way. It's back to our earlier point. You've got to find a way to make a decision quickly whether something is appropriate for you to invest your time in. And most people are terrible at making decisions. They can't say no and they can't say yes. So what they find is they're just like, overwhelmed with everything that's going on in the world because they can't decide if something's appropriate for them or not. So as business people, as marketers, we really need to be really harsh at determining and making decisions on what is suitable for us to invest our time in researching. I think that's really important. There's times where being first to market is really, really important, but most of the time it's about all the other stuff that matters. Good customer service, great product development, all of that stuff. That's never changed in however many years, decades, centuries we've been doing stuff.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think there's plenty that we could continue to talk about in terms of content. But I want to ask you some quick questions. These are questions that we've asked everybody on all the episodes. So I have got very specific questions. Well, some specific questions for you. But first of all, you're going to be our opening keynote on the 25th of September, which I'm really chuffed about because I just think it'll be so cool to have you there, and I think people will just get so much value from what you talk about. But apart from you, because you can't nominate yourself, of the people that are on the list of speakers in September, who are you looking forward to seeing yourself?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. So I've only met, this is great. This is why I love going to events just like this to hang out, is because I've only ever met, apart from you, Paul, Ross. I've met Ross before at another conference in Nottingham. I have not met anybody else on the schedule, right? So that's huge for me. I don't know anything really about any of those people, right? Which is again amazing. So I am looking at the list here. I know I'd love to meet Holly because I'm up here in Dundee. She's got the Beano connection. I know a little bit about that. I'd love to meet her. Chris Strubb looks really interesting as well because I think he's a connection with Brian Fanzo, and I've been following their Snapchat thing and all that kind of stuff. So that looks really interesting. So I haven't got like one answer for you. I'm looking forward to meeting all the other people, all the other speakers. One of the things that I typically do before events like this is I will reach out and connect with them and grab a call, get a Zoom call with each one of them so I get to know them before we go down. But it's great to go to an event where I've never met most of the people that are on the stage. So that doesn't really specifically answer your question, but I'm looking forward to meeting everybody.
One of the things that I loved about last year's event, because that was our first one, obviously, we just didn't know what we were doing then, was that we made quite a big effort to make sure that speakers, got to speak to each other and met each other at least the night before, because everyone's going through the same thing together. Everyone's sort of doing their thing on stage, and I think it's nice to build relationships with them and with the wider community, the people in the audience as well. Yeah. So no, I think that's a fair question.
It's really important to do that. I think it's like going to an event and meeting your peers basically, and that's what it's all about. Yeah. So and I'm really excited about coming down and seeing everybody and meeting everyone.
You organise an event yourself, CMA Live, and also World Class Communication as well, which is that happening this year? Do you want to get that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we'll get something out this week, hopefully, actually, on that. So cool. Yeah, it's happening this year. So we'll be working with Marcus Sheridan again this year. Honestly, a lot of the stuff I've just talked to you about is stuff I've learned directly from Marcus. and
It's a good guy.
approach to communication, the stage stuff, all of that is stuff that Marcus has channeled out of me somehow.
Well, think about being an attendee. What's the one thing that you would advise an attendee to do to get the most out of any event?
Oh, right, okay. You know what? Turn up with an open mind. Don't think you know everything. These are things I'm saying don't. These are things you should do. Don't be obsessed with who or like who's saying it, right? I would say for most attendees, especially the ones that get a bit cranky about things, it's like, I've heard that before, or that wasn't the right quote, or he never said that, blah, blah, blah. Focus on, instead of who's saying it, focus on what's being said and focus on your business. So go in with the idea of writing down the stuff that comes into your head as someone's speaking. Don't be too concerned about writing down what's on the slides or what's coming out of their mouth. What ideas are happening? Get them down on the paper. If you want to get the most from an event, I've had one person in our whole time as an event organizer say to me, I came to your event and I learned nothing. Now, that says more about them than it does about me. Now, and I don't like the fact that they feel like that about our event, but there is absolutely no way that you can go to an event and learn nothing. So go with an open mind, meet loads of people, be nice, look after each other. If you see someone standing on their own, open up your group for them, and be friendly to people.
Great advice, Chris. My final question is it's sort of completely random, really, but I just thought, I'd have the opportunity with you sort of fanboy a little bit about Anne Handley at every opportunity.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to...
I knew it was coming.
You knew it was coming, right? So how amazing is Anne Handley? In a few words, if you can sum it up.
Anne is one of the most inspiring people in marketing today, and she goes way beyond that. We love her. She is amazing. She's just very how do you describe Anne? She's very inclusive. She wants to be part of what you do. She's really interested in what's going on. She pays attention. She's very forgiving as well, in that she will give you feedback and help. She wants to help you, right? So I've spent lots of time with Anne, for example, just picking her brain, and she's got so much time for you. But she doesn't bullshit either, and she doesn't like bullshitters either. So she's got this really nice way about her. She is absolutely everything that I would say a leader should be in their industry. Anne is in marketing, of course, but I think she embodies everything that leadership should look like.
100% agree with you. I think she is accessible, and I think she's a kind person as well. Like you say, she will give you feedback, but the way that she will deliver any feedback to you is constructive. And I've interacted with her once in real life now that I met her at CMA. But she, she's willing to form relationships with people and to continue those on. Yeah. So I think she's totally wonderful, and she wrote a very nice thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. She's a beautiful human. That's how I would summarize that.
There we go. Right. Well, I think that's a very good place to end that on. Don't want to get too stalkerish with Anne.
Too mushy. I know. Crying.
Thanks ever so much.
I miss you, Anne.
We'll see you soon. Thanks ever so much, Chris, for joining us on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I look forward to seeing you in September.
Yeah, can't wait. It's going to be so exciting. I'm really excited to see everybody and to be a part of the event. So thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for inviting me to your event, and I'll see everybody there.
Okay, folks. So if you want to join Chris along with the other speakers at MarketEd Live on the 25th of September, you've really kind of got to get your skates on now, because there's only really a few weeks left until the event itself. If you want to get a ticket, go to marketed.live. All of the available options are there, including discount on accommodation and rail tickets to get out of London, because that's obviously a thing. Go and do that. If there's anything that we can do to help, all you've got to do is ask, and we will help you with whatever it is that you need. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, or if you're watching the video, please do the whole thing, the social thing. Give us a like, subscribe, and if you can, please review us on Stitcher and Apple Podcasts and all the rest of it, because that's apparently very helpful. It's all new to us. I don't really understand, but apparently it is. So thanks again to Chris. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.